Hey folks, tonight we're diving into something raw, colossal, and utterly merciless: life in the Roman Empire. Forget the senators, the emperors, the golden laurels, or marble baths. Tonight, you're not Julius Caesar. You're just you, tossed unprepared into a world of sandals, sewage, and state-sanctioned crucifixions. Before you settle in, hit that like button and subscribe, but only if you genuinely dig what I do here. Drop a comment telling me where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's wild seeing who joins us from across the globe. Now, dim those lights, maybe crank up a fan for some background hum, and let's drift into tonight's journey together. You blink awake to the soundtrack of yelling, clucking chickens, and a wailing baby down the hall. Congrats. You've just woken up in a Roman insula, the ancient version of a cramped apartment building. Picture a multi-story death trap held together by dust, prayers, and some seriously questionable engineering. You're probably on the third or fourth floor, which is bad news. The higher you go, the poorer the tenant, and the more likely your ceiling caves in when someone upstairs spills olive oil. Your room? A glorified closet with stone walls that sweat in summer and freeze in winter. No window, just a sad little hole that lets in air, smoke, and the occasional kamikaze pigeon. Your mattress is stuffed with straw and lice, and your blanket smells like damp wool and life choices. No furniture, no decor, and definitely no kitchen. Cooking indoors is banned. One small fire, and the whole building goes up in flames. Fire codes, not invented yet. Your worldly possessions? A chipped clay cup, a threadbare tunic, and maybe a wooden comb if you're feeling fancy. No toilet, not in your room or the building. Your chamber pot lurks in the corner, silently judging you. You'll haul it down rickety stairs to dump into the street gutter, praying you don't slip and become part of the morning's offerings. Oh, and the walls are paper thin. You'll hear your neighbor praying, coughing, arguing with his wife, and, unfortunately, not arguing with his wife, if you catch my drift. The air, a thick cocktail of smoke, mildew, and the unmistakable perfume of unwashed humanity. Someone's baking bread downstairs, but you're not invited. Street vendors scream prices for figs and fish guts. A centurion barks orders at someone who's probably already bleeding. You're not even out the door yet, and you're sweaty, itchy, and possibly inhaling lead dust from the plumbing. Welcome to the Roman workday. You're not an emperor. You're not a gladiator. You're just another nameless soul in an overcrowded tenement, trying not to tumble down the stairs or piss off a city god before noon. And you've still got 23 hours to go. Now that you've survived the death-defying stairs of your insula, it's time to tackle the second most urgent morning task: your bladder. No bathroom in your apartment. Obviously, no sink, no flush, not even a bucket with dignity. Instead, you shuffle down the street, chamber pot in one hand, modesty in the other, heading for the nearest latrina, Rome's public restroom, and that term is generous. It's a social club for strangers who don't mind eye contact while doing their business. You arrive to find a long stone bench with holes carved into it. Below, a shallow trough of water carries away the collective shame of the city's lower classes. You sit, if you dare, and pray the person beside you isn't chatty. Privacy? Non-existent. Doors? Absolutely not. People treat it like a town square with bonus acoustics. Businessmen debate grain prices mid-squat. A retired soldier whines about his sciatica. Meanwhile, you're just trying not to lock eyes with the guy across from you, chewing olives like it's a staring contest. Then comes the piece de resistance, the tersorium, a communal sponge on a stick, dunked in a bucket of vinegar or salt water. In theory, you rinse it first. In practice, let's just say that sponge has seen things. You wipe hesitantly, hoping the vinegar did its job. If you're lucky, you brought your own rag. If you're rich, maybe some moss. But chances are, you just used what everyone else used, and now carry the quiet shame of shared hygiene. And if you think you can skip this ritual by peeing in an alley, think again. Public urination laws exist, fines are brutal, and Roman law enforcement doesn't do subtle warnings. Done? Time to wash your hands. Wait, no you don't. No soap, no running water. Just a quick rinse in the communal basin that's seen more fingers than a handshake contest. You leave the latrina feeling lighter and a little more dead inside. But hey, that's Rome. Now, it's breakfast time, if you can call it that. So, you've survived your morning business without falling into a gutter or getting arrested. Impressive. Now, breakfast, the most important meal of the day, unless you're Roman, in which case it's a sad prelude to work and misery. Welcome to Iantaculum, a Roman feast of two things, stale bread and watered-down wine. Sometimes there's cheese or olives, but mostly it's just disappointment. Coffee doesn't exist yet. Eggs, bacon, pancakes? Dream on. Breakfast isn't meant to satisfy. It's meant to not kill you. Your bread is panis rusticus, a dense, chewy lump of grain and grit baked yesterday or the day before. It's weapon grade and tastes like limestone. The wine's diluted because even Romans knew being drunk by sunrise was a bad idea, unless you're a senator. With no kitchen, you eat this standing in the street or squatting by a fountain, gnawing bread like flavorless bark. If you're fancy, you've got a drizzle of oil or a smear of garum, Rome's infamous fermented fish sauce. Congrats, you've just added aromatic horror to your bleak meal. Wealthy folks might get fruit or honey, but you? You're just poor enough to envy your neighbor's cracked jug of goat milk. Vendors hawk hot chickpea fritters or honeyed pastries, teasing your hope, until you remember your coin pouch is emptier than a gladiator's sympathy. So you choke down your bread and pretend it's cake. And that's how your day starts. Carbs, mild dehydration, and the crushing realization that you're about to trek 7 miles in Roman sandals with nothing but crumbs in your stomach and a hangover from last night's wine. It doesn't get better because now it's time for work. After your hearty breakfast of bread and existential dread, it's time to face the Roman workday. Unless you're a senator, a poet with a patron, or some lucky heir, you're working hard. You might be a laborer, porter, potter, bricklayer, street cleaner, or, if the gods hate you, a sewer worker. Rome needs roads, aqueducts, temples, and baths. And guess who's building them? You, with your bare hands, under the scorching sun, in sandals with the arch support of a soggy leaf. The workday starts early, brutally early. The sun's barely up, but the foreman's already screaming in Latin and waving a stick. Late, kiss a day's pay goodbye, or worse, get beaten, shamed, or fired, which in Rome means you starve with honor. Your tools are primitive, a splintery shovel, bricks hauled on your back, water from a cistern that smells like ambition and old socks. No gloves, no helmets, just sweat, dust, and the constant fear that one slip could crush your spine and your career simultaneously. Craftsman, good luck. You're competing with hundreds selling identical clay pots, sandals, or tunics. Underpricing is rampant, and quality doesn't matter if a rich guy decides he doesn't like your face. Even elevated jobs, messenger, accountant, teacher, are grim. You're either sprinting through chaotic streets with scrolls, crunching numbers for someone who'll forget your name, or teaching Latin to senators' kids who think they're gods. Women? They're working too, spinning, weaving, selling veggies, managing market stalls, raising kids, running households, and not dying in childbirth. Multitasking before it was cool. After surviving the morning gauntlet of crumbling apartments and questionable hygiene, you step out into Rome's streets. A chaotic obstacle course designed by someone who despised personal space and public health. Picture this. The sun's blazing, the city's buzzing, and the streets are alive. Not poetically, but literally. Rats dart between sandals. Flies swarm over fish guts. Stray dogs and livestock weave through crowds. Beggars plead. Merchants shout in half a dozen languages. Children run wild. And thieves help. Old ladies while lifting your coin purse. It's like Times Square. If Times Square had no plumbing and everyone was herding goats. Let's talk infrastructure. Roman roads were engineering marvels. Perfectly straight, masterfully paved, and perpetually slick with a cocktail of urine, spilled wine, vomit, animal waste, and last night's garum sauce. The street's center? An open sewer. Step off the raised footpath without looking. And congratulations, You've just baptized your sandal in the holy waters of human misery. Wagons thunder past with no speed limits, crosswalks, or mercy. They don't stop for pedestrians. In fact, Roman law banned heavy carts during the day, so drivers race through at night like charioteers on a deadline, no brakes included. If the carts don't kill you, the elbows, baskets, or an angry fishmonger screaming about spoiled eels might. Then there's the air, thick with cooking smoke, temple incense, the bouquet of public latrines, and, oh, dead animals. Sometimes creatures just drop in the forum, and someone tosses a cloth over them like a macabre table setting. Don't forget the spontaneous spectacles, brawls, protests, or a politician's parade that gridlocks traffic for hours while off-key trumpets blast in your face. The Roman street isn't just alive, it's out to get you. Slip on a fig, trampled. Offend a patrician's pet monkey, stabbed. And you were just trying to buy lentils. Now, sweaty, dusty, and craving something cold, you remember Rome's famed aqueducts, those towering engineering feats pumping fresh water from the hills. Good news, water's everywhere. Bad news, it doesn't care about you. Unless you're rich enough for a private fountain, you're sharing H2O with thousands of your closest, coughing, unwashed neighbors. Your options: public fountains where people fill jars, wash feet, or dunk kids for hygiene, read Watery Hope, or the Thermae, Rome's public baths. Sounds civilized? Think again. The baths are a tepid soup of humanity. No soap, no chlorine, just a dozen naked men arguing politics while someone sells socks and another cleans his ears with a stick. The water's been through everyone. You're not bathing. You're marinating in bacteria with a hint of eucalyptus. Oh, and the pipes? Often made of lead. Romans loved engineering, but flunked chemistry. Long-term effects? Anemia, gout, infertility, or, if you're lucky, madness. Prefer something safer to drink? Wine. Seriously, water's suspect, especially in poor districts where it's laced with latrine runoff. So wine, diluted, of course, flows all day, consumed by men, women, and even kids. Because what better way to endure a crumbling empire than with a gentle buzz? Rome brought water to the masses before most cultures knew what pipes were. But for the average Joe, every sip's a gamble. Pain in the Roman Empire isn't just an occasional nuisance. It's the constant background music of your existence. Stub your toe? No ice packs, no painkillers. You'll grit your teeth until it either heals crooked or falls off completely. Break a bone, wrap it in a filthy rag, and try not to breathe too deeply. Get a splinter? Congratulations, you've just entered the infection lottery where the grand prize is an early grave. Roman society had zero tolerance for weakness, no ergonomic tools, no padded chairs, no concept of taking it easy. If you're a laborer, you're hauling bricks with a hernia and a prayer. If you're a soldier, you're marching 20 miles a day with bleeding feet and a scorpion sting on your thigh. If you're a woman giving birth, well, welcome to agony. Your midwife might know a chant or two. That's about it. Every part of your body is one misstep away from becoming a cautionary tale. Unless you live near a temple with particularly dedicated priests, your healthcare options are homemade ointments, herbal smoke, or ignoring the problem until it resolves itself, or resolves you into a grave. Anesthesia doesn't exist. Surgeries happen while you bite down on a wooden block and scream yourself hoarse. Dislocated shoulder? Some guy named Marcus will pop it back in. He learned by watching someone else fail at it first. Dental work? Imagine a blacksmith. Now imagine your mouth. That's your reality. And if you're enslaved or poor, nobody even pretends to care. You could be bleeding out in an alley, and the most you'll get is, "Don't stain the mosaic." Even the upper classes embraced pain as virtue. Stoicism was the philosophy du jour. Enduring suffering without complaint was considered noble. If you cried over a broken arm, you weren't just in pain, you were weak. Real Romans suffered silently, then maybe wrote poetry about it later. Pain wasn't just probable in Rome. It was guaranteed, arriving without warning, remedy, or sympathy. Now let's talk about Roman medicine, or as it should be called, how to survive the cure. That infected blister from yesterday's work? That shaving mishap that left your chin looking like a gladiator's training dummy? Time to see a doctor, where healing means surviving the treatment attempt. Roman medicine was a chaotic mix of Greek theory, mystical guesswork, and an alarming amount of random leaves. The core belief? Your body runs on 4 humors: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. Feeling sick? One's out of balance. The solution? Drain something. Your doctor, who might also be your barber, immediately reaches for leeches or a knife, because bloodletting cures everything from migraines to moral failings. Got a cough? Let's open a vein. Depressed? We'll drain the sadness from your arm. Surgery did exist, with scalpels, forceps, and even bone drills. What didn't exist? Anesthesia. You'd stay conscious while a man in a dirty toga dug into your flesh with the confidence of someone who once skimmed a scroll about anatomy. Antiseptics? Basically non-existent. They might rinse wounds with wine or vinegar, which helped but burned like divine punishment. Infection was practically guaranteed. So was death. Prescriptions were equally terrifying. Honey, garlic, crushed beetles, or pastes made of herbs, ash, and very specific animal dung. If things worsened, you'd sleep in a temple, pray to Asclepius, and hope divine dreams delivered your cure. When none of it worked, your doctor shrugged, your family lit candles, and neighbors started whispering about what omen your death might represent. Romans weren't indifferent to health. They just hadn't figured out what actually helped versus what killed you faster. Next time you sneeze, thank modern medicine, you don't live in a world where treatment begins with blood loss. After enduring the daily grind of sweat, blood, and dodging runaway chariots, you're finally ready for dinner, or as the Romans called it, cena. But don't expect anything resembling comfort food. Let's start with what's not on the menu. No pizza, no pasta, no tomatoes, no potatoes, no chocolate, no sugar, and absolutely no coffee. None of these existed in the ancient Roman world. This isn't Italian cuisine as we know it. This is pre-Italy survival eating at its most basic. You sit down to a wooden bowl containing something brown and vaguely warm. It's probably pulse, a porridge made from spelt, beans, or lentils that taste like wet gravel with a faint herbal aftertaste if you're lucky. If you're unlucky, just wet gravel. Protein is scarce unless you caught, trapped, or fished it yourself. Meat is expensive, and when you do get some, it's often questionable. Without refrigeration, preservation meant heavy salting, smoking, or drowning everything in garum, that infamous fermented fish sauce that smells like a dead ocean and assaults your soul just thinking about it. If you're feeling fancy, there might be boiled vegetables, rock-hard cheese, or the occasional figure. Meanwhile, rich Romans dined on delicacies like roasted flamingo, stuffed dormice, or jellyfish in vinegar, dishes that basically screamed, "Look how rich I am that I can afford to eat disgusting things." Your wine is always watered down. Drinking it straight was considered barbaric. But don't worry, the water it's mixed with is probably just as questionable. So you're essentially choosing between slow poisoning or fast poisoning. Dessert? Maybe some dried fruit or nuts. Or maybe you're fasting because it's a religious holiday and the gods frown on gluttony. Either way, you're not ending your meal with tiramisu. There are no napkins. You'll wipe your hands on a communal cloth shared with 10 others. Or just use your tunic and pretend it's clean. By meal's end, your stomach is full but uneasy. Your breath smells like garlic, wine, and quiet desperation. But at least you're fed. Now brace yourself for Roman nightlife. And trust me, it's no relaxing evening stroll. Entertainment in Rome was everywhere, and most of it was horrifying. The main event? The Colosseum, that crown jewel of Roman engineering where your soul goes to die slowly. This is where crowds gathered to watch men stab each other for sport, wild animals devour criminals, and occasionally, if the emperor felt theatrical, full naval battles reenacted with real water and real drowning. Admission was free, which sounds generous until you realize it's free because the state wanted you distracted while senators raised taxes and quietly annexed Armenia. You'll sit packed between sweaty strangers, cheering as a gladiator loses a limb. There's blood, sand, and occasional executions with extra flair. You'll find yourself clapping without knowing why. Prefer something more refined? Try the theater for Roman plays, either tragedies in Latin you barely understand, or farces where the punchline involves someone pretending to defile Jupiter with a sausage. Subtlety was not Rome's strong suit. For sports fans, there's the Circus Maximus, where chariot races are fast, thrilling, and routinely fatal. No guardrails, no helmets, just lots of shouting. Crashes are inevitable and spectacular. The crowd loves it. They're here for the violence and the betting. Just don't cheer for the wrong team unless you're ready to fight your way home. Street entertainment offers fire breathers, acrobats, musicians, con artists, and the occasional philosophical rant from a barefoot man with nothing left to lose. Don't like the show? Wait 5 minutes. Something or someone else will start yelling. Behind all this spectacle lies a brilliant, brutal truth. Rome didn't just distract its people. It dazzled them into forgetting how awful daily life was. It weaponized entertainment. And if that didn't numb you enough, there was always more wine. Now let's talk about Roman justice. Spoiler alert, it's not comforting. You've survived work, dinner, and watching a gladiator get impaled for applause. You might think you're safe if you keep your head down. How adorable. In Rome, the law doesn't protect. It reminds you that you're small, replaceable, and that mercy is reserved for statues of emperors. Legal status determines everything. If you're a citizen, you have rights, in theory. You can't be publicly flogged unless someone important gets annoyed, and you get a proper trial sometimes. Non-citizens? Justice comes as a fist, branding iron, or swift execution outside the city gates. Slaves? They're property. If a slave kills their master, even if the master deserved it, every slave in the household might be executed to send a message. The message? Don't even think about it. If accused of a crime, don't expect a fair trial. Trials are public theater where the wealthier side brings witnesses, bribes, and dramatic gestures. You bring your tunic and a sinking feeling. If you can cry on cue, that might help. Have no patrons? Pray to Jupiter and hope the magistrate isn't hungover. Punishments aren't about justice. They're about deterrence. Thieves get branded or have hands broken. Liars might get their tongues pierced. Fraud means public flogging or exile, if you're lucky. Insult the emperor? That's not jail time. That's creative execution. Some crimes demand public punishment, ideally before a crowd that cheers louder than they did for that morning's beheading. Crucifixion isn't just for Jesus. It's the go-to for rebels, robbers, and anyone the state wants to make an example of. And remember, law enforcement isn't there to help. The vigiles, Rome's firefighter police hybrids, are underpaid, overworked, and often corrupt. Get mugged? They might shrug. Bribe them? They might help you mug someone else. Rome had laws written in stone and recited in forums, but they served power, not justice. The empire may have been eternal, but your rights certainly weren't. Religion in ancient Rome wasn't a private matter. It was a full-time job with divine oversight. You didn't choose your gods. They claimed you through an elaborate web of obligations, rituals, and the constant fear of divine retribution. Forget personal spirituality. This was institutionalized worship where skipping a ceremony could mean your roof collapses next week, and everyone would nod saying, a yes. He neglected the Saturnalia offering. The Roman pantheon was exhaustive. There were gods for everything. Your hinges? That's Cardea's domain. Sewers? Cloacina's territory. Boundaries? Terminus has that covered. Even mildew had its own deity, Robigus, who presumably enjoyed watching bread turn green. You couldn't walk 5 steps without bumping into a shrine, and ignoring it wasn't just rude. It was an invitation for catastrophe. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually the gods would notice. Religious festivals filled the calendar like bureaucratic appointments. Dozens per year meant business stoppages, animal sacrifices, and air thick with the scent of roasting bull and wet marble. You attended out of piety, sure, but mostly fear, because if the gods weren't properly honored, they'd retaliate with plagues, droughts, or a particularly bad harvest that ruined everyone's lentil supply. Nothing brought Romans together like shared terror of divine punishment. Then there was emperor worship, the state-mandated cult that blurred the line between politics and religion. You were expected to offer incense at the emperor's altar, sing his praises, and never roll your eyes during his triumphal procession. That was treason adjacent. Skip public worship? Forget being labeled atheist. You'd be marked as suspicious, which in Rome was like wearing a kick me sign in shark-infested waters. Foreign cults had to keep their heads down unless officially approved. The state only tolerated unfamiliar gods if they brought wine, taxes, or fresh recruits. Roman religion wasn't about belief. It was about ritual perfection. You didn't need to feel it. You needed to do it correctly, on schedule, and in public view. And you'd better smile while sacrificing that goat, because the gods could smell insincerity. This was religion as social contract, a transactional relationship where humans provided worship and sacrifices, and the gods, well, ideally didn't smite them. Speaking of social contracts, let's climb the greasy pole of Roman ambition. You bowed to the gods, avoided lawsuits, and survived public baths without contracting mythical diseases. Now comes the most exhausting part of Roman life, the social hierarchy, a brutal pyramid scheme where every interaction could make or break you. Roman society was a ladder slick with oil and lined with daggers, where the higher you climbed, the more dangerous the fall. At the top sat senators, old money elites whose purple-striped togas and vast estates had their own postal codes. Below them, the equestrians, wealthy businessmen who financed the empire's wars and infrastructure. Then came plebeians like you, the struggling middle and lower classes. Further down, freedmen, slaves, foreigners, and that poor guy who once insulted a statue of Augustus and would never live it down. Want to move up? You needed patrons, powerful figures who offered protection in exchange for lifelong loyalty, favors, and votes. It was like having a boss, godfather, and landlord rolled into one condescending package. Each morning, you'd join the salutation show, a ritualized ass-kicking session where clients lined up to praise their patron's haircut, compliment his son's toga, and beg for scraps. If lucky, he'd toss you a coin and let you carry his litter through the forum. Congratulations, you're now connected. Every move was scrutinized. Your clothes had to be clean, not fashionable, just clean. Your speech properly inflected. Your friends carefully vetted. And ambition had to be concealed. Rise too fast, and rivals would conspire to knock you down, socially, professionally, or literally. Networking was warfare. Gossip was currency. A wrong comment at a banquet could end your career, while the right marriage might save your bloodline. The love was for poets. Practical Romans married for alliances and property access. Even if you climbed high, security was illusory. One bad harvest, one missed ritual, one jealous rival, and it was over. You wouldn't hear the dagger coming. Now the sun sets, surely Rome sleeps? Not a chance. Nightfall transforms the city from chaotic to lethal, where darkness amplifies every danger. As darkness falls over Rome, the city doesn't sleep, it transforms into a different kind of beast. The shift from day to night isn't about rest. It's about survival in a landscape where every shadow could conceal a thief, every flicker of light might signal an approaching fire, and every noise could mean danger or just your neighbor's latest domestic dispute. Welcome to the Roman night shift, where the rules change and the stakes get higher. First, let's talk lighting, or the crushing lack of it. Unless you're wealthy enough to burn oil lamps all night, and most aren't, you're navigating by moonlight, memory, and blind hope. The narrow alleys become labyrinths, and if you trip and fall, don't expect help. More likely, someone will steal your sandals while you're sprawled on the ground. The vigiles, Rome's night watchmen, are supposed to patrol for fires and crime, but in reality, they're overworked, underpaid, and more interested in napping than heroics. Some are brave, most are bribable, all are outnumbered. Criminals know this. Thieves, muggers, and the occasional bored ex-gladiator roam the shadows, hunting easy targets. Walking alone at night? You're the target. It doesn't matter who you are. Unless you're armed, fast, or invisible, you're at risk. And then there's fire, Rome's greatest nocturnal terror. Those instantly you call home? They're tinderboxes of wood and desperation. Cooking after dark is illegal for this very reason, but hunger overrides fear. A single overturned lamp can reduce an entire block to ash before dawn. The Great Fire of 64 CE didn't start itself, and once it began, it raged like a god's wrath. If you smell smoke at midnight, there's no orderly evacuation, just panic. You grab your tunic, your chamber pot priorities, and maybe your dignity before sprinting down collapsing stairs. And if it's not fire or thieves, it's noise. Drunken parties echo through streets. Processions for obscure gods parade past with drums and shouting. If a senator's mistress is upset, The whole neighborhood hears about it. Sleep isn't a guarantee, it's a luxury for the wealthy, the armed, and the impossibly lucky. But morning always comes, and with it, the same brutal cycle: crumbling apartments, public toilets, backbreaking labor, and the ever-present threat of violence. You'd last a day in ancient Rome? Unlikely. Most modern humans, with our antibiotics, ergonomic chairs, and food delivery, would crumble by lunch. You'd beg for a hot shower and a painkiller before noon. And yet, the Romans endured for centuries. Here's the maddening thing: Rome worked. Somehow, amid the filth, brutality, and noise, they built an empire that shaped the world. Aqueducts, roads, libraries, temples, all constructed by people who walked these same filthy streets. Latin became the root of languages. Their political concepts, senates, veto power, still echo today. Their concrete outlasts modern buildings. But this came at a cost. For the average Roman, not the emperors, not the marble-bathed elite, life was a hard-fought grind. They endured because they had to. Rome wasn't made of gold. It was made of sweat, fear, ambition, and survival. Layer by layer, person by person, century by bloody century. So no, you wouldn't last. But you don't have to. You just need to understand that someone did, and that their struggle built the foundations of the modern world. Now go appreciate your mattress, your toilet, and the fact that no one expects you to share a sponge on a stick. Dawn breaks over Rome, and with it comes the familiar ache in your bones. You've survived another night of fitful sleep on your lice-infested straw mattress, your body pressed against cold stone walls that somehow manage to sweat in summer and freeze in winter. The baby next door has been wailing since midnight. Your neighbor's cough sounds like a dying donkey, and somewhere in the building, a couple is having the kind of argument that makes you question humanity. Welcome to another glorious day in the Roman Empire, where merely waking up is an accomplishment. You reach for your tunic, the same one you've worn for 3 weeks straight, and the smell hits you before the fabric even touches your skin. Damp wool, stale sweat, and that peculiar metallic tang of lead dust from the pipes. No changing clothes today, or any day really. Laundry is a luxury when you're living hand to mouth. Your breakfast? The same as yesterday. A hunk of bread so stale you could mortar bricks with it. Washed down with wine, so watered down it's basically colored water. At least the wine kills some of the bread weevils. Maybe. The chamber pot in the corner has reached its critical mass. Time to carry it down 4 flights of rickety stairs that sway with every step. One wrong move, and you'll be wearing yesterday's dinner. The street gutter where you dump it is already overflowing with, well, everything. A rat the size of your sandal eyes you from the pile. You nod at each other, fellow survivors in this urban nightmare. Work today? More back-breaking labor at the construction site. No safety ropes, no harnesses, just you and 100 other poor souls hauling stones under the watchful eye of a foreman who thinks whips are proper motivation. The sun beats down like Vulcan's hammer. Your sandals offer less protection than wet parchment, and the dust, gods, the dust gets everywhere. In your eyes, your mouth, your lungs. By noon, you're coughing up what feels like bits of the Colosseum. Lunch is whatever street vendor isn't selling meat that moves on its own. You settle for some questionable garum-smelled fish paste smeared on more brick-like bread. The vendor swears it's fresh. The flies swarming it swear otherwise. You eat it anyway. Hunger is the best sauce, as they say. The afternoon brings new horrors. A cart nearly runs you over, some drunk vomits on your feet, and you step in something that squelches in a way you don't want to think about. Home at last, you collapse onto your bed, only for the couple upstairs to start their nightly activities. The smells of cooking fires, sewage, and unwashed humanity mingle in your tiny room. Somewhere, a senator dines on stuffed dormice and honeyed wine in his marble villa. Somewhere, an emperor plans another triumph. And here you are, just another faceless body keeping the empire running, one aching day at a time. Tomorrow, it'll be the same. And the day after. And the day after that. Because that's Rome, glorious, eternal, and utterly merciless to those who build its glory. As the sun climbs higher, the true horror of Roman public baths reveals itself. You thought the streets were bad? The baths are where Rome's social hierarchy becomes physically palpable. The rich lounge in marble-clad luxury while you shuffle through the tepid public pools, trying not to think about what's floating in the water. At least 20 other bodies share this murky basin. Soldiers scrubbing off battlefield grime, merchants washing away marketplace sweat, and that one guy in the corner doing something suspicious with a sponge. The changing room is its own special hell. Your sandals stick to the floor with every step, and the air hangs thick with the stench of unwashed feet and cheap oil. A slave offers to wash your clothes for a fee you can't afford, so you keep your tunic on, which marks you immediately as poor. The bath attendant sneers as he hands you a cracked wooden strigil, its edge dulled from scraping 1,000 filthy bodies before yours. In the caldarium, the heat punches you in the lungs. Steam rises from the floor, carrying with it the accumulated stink of generations of bathers. A senator's entourage sweeps in, their perfumed oil creating visible clouds in the humid air. Their slaves carry silver strigils and flasks of imported Egyptian unguents while you scrape your skin raw with splintering wood. One particularly fleshy patrician glares at your presence, as if poverty might be contagious. The water in the main pool has taken on a suspicious yellowish hue. Something brushes against your leg, hopefully just someone's lost toe strap. As you soak, snippets of conversation float by, talk of gladiator bets, political scandals, and the latest shipment of Gaulish wine. Your stomach growls, reminding you that dinner will be another bowl of pulse, that glorified gruel that's been your steady companion since, well, forever. Suddenly, a commotion erupts near the entrance. Two merchants are arguing over a stolen towel, their voices echoing off the vaulted ceilings. The bathkeeper wades in, swinging his cane indiscriminately. You take the opportunity to slip out, your clean skin already gathering a fresh layer of city grime. At least the frigidarium's cold plunge shocked most of the fleas into temporary retreat. Emerging into the afternoon light, you realize the baths didn't cleanse you so much as redistribute the filth more evenly. Your tunic clings damply, now impregnated with a bouquet of communal sweat and cheap oil. Somewhere in the distance, a herald announces the emperor's latest victory in Dacia. You scratch a fresh insect bite and wonder if the barbarians might be onto something. Night falls like a lead blanket over Rome, but the city's misery simply changes shifts. Your tiny apartment transforms into an oven, the day's heat radiating from the stones with nowhere to escape. The single oil lamp you rationed for the week sputters its last, plunging you into darkness broken only by moonlight filtering through that useless ventilation hole. Outside, the night watch's distant shouts do little to mask the sounds of breaking pottery and drunken brawls. Sleep? A theoretical concept. The couple upstairs has moved from arguing to what they probably consider romance, their bed frame pounding against your ceiling with rhythmic insistence. 3 streets over, a tavern's patrons have begun their nightly rendition of What Could Possibly Go Wrong. Spoiler, everything. The stench of the day's waste still lingers, now joined by the acrid smoke of 100 cooking fires that somehow violate the no cooking after dark laws. Your stomach growls, but the bread's gone moldy and the cheese has developed ambitions of independence. That's when the rats announce their presence, not the discreet scuttling of polite vermin, but the full-scale invasion of creatures who know they outnumber you. One bold specimen stares at you from the chamber pot, its beady eyes clearly calculating which of you will blink first. Somewhere in this endless night, a fire breaks out. You hear the shouts before the glow becomes visible through your hole-in-the-wall window. The Vigila's brass bell clangs in the distance, but everyone knows they'll arrive just in time to watch the building collapse. You clutch your meager possessions, a wooden bowl, that comb missing half its teeth, and the tunic you're wearing, ready to flee if the flames come closer. Dawn finds you bleary-eyed, your body aching from another night spent half awake on a surface that makes rocks seem plush. The baby's still crying, the neighbor's still coughing, and your tunic now sports a new stain from when you spilled wine trying to numb yesterday's pains. But hey, the fire didn't reach you, and the rats left your toes alone. In Rome, that counts as victory. As you shuffle toward another day of backbreaking labor, you pass a slave scrubbing a wealthy household's doorstep. His knees are raw from the stones, his tunic thinner than yours. For a fleeting moment, you consider that maybe, just maybe, your life could be worse. Then the foreman's whip cracks, and the thought evaporates like morning dew in the forum. The marketplace at noon is Rome's cruelest joke, a teeming spectacle of abundance where you can't afford so much as a rotten figure. You shuffle past stalls overflowing with fresh bread, their aroma taunting your empty stomach. A plump merchant flicks water at you from his prized Spanish olives, shouting, "Move along, beggar," as if poverty were a contagious disease. Nearby, a patrician slave carries a basket of peaches so perfect they might as well be golden orbs from the gods themselves. Your errand today? Buying grain with wages that haven't kept pace with the emperor's latest tax hike. The line at the state granary stretches 3 blocks, a shuffling parade of hollow-eyed citizens clutching their ration tokens. 2 places ahead, an old veteran's hands tremble as he counts out coins, his military pension barely covering a week's food. Behind you, a mother with a crying toddler shifts her weight from foot to foot. The child's ribs show through its thin tunic. When you finally reach the counter, the clerk's nasal voice announces the bad news. Wheat's up 30% this week. Blame the Dacian campaign. He drops your meager portion into your sack with a smirk, letting half of it spill on the counter where you can't retrieve it. The grain is mixed with chaff and weevils, but it's this or starve. You tie the sack carefully. Losing even a single grain would mean going hungry tomorrow. On the walk home, you're jostled by a senator's litter bearers. The curtains part just enough to reveal a fat hand dripping with rings tossing grape seeds onto the street. One hits your cheek. The laughter from inside the litter follows you down the alley. Your grip tightens on your grain sack. But what can you do? Complain to the magistrate? The same man who dined with that senator last night. Back in your apartment, you grind the grain into flour using the communal millstone in the courtyard. Your neighbor, the one with the cough, spits blood into the drain as he waits his turn. No one comments. By now, blood in the courtyard is as common as bird shit. The flour comes out gray and gritty, but it'll have to do. You mix it with water and a pinch of salt, kneading dough that's more paste than bread. As you wait for your turn at the shared oven, a street preacher shouts about the coming apocalypse. Nobody pays him any mind. When you live in an insula, every day feels like the end times anyway. The bread emerges flat and hard, but it's food. You eat half now, save half for tomorrow, and try not to think about how the rich are probably eating stuffed thrushes right now, their tables groaning under the weight of silver platters. Somewhere in the distance, trumpets announce another military triumph. The crowd cheers as captured treasure parades through the streets. You take another bite of your bread, chewing slowly. Rome is eternal, they say. Funny how eternity tastes like ashes and despair. The final insult comes at sunset, when the city's true colors emerge in the fading light. As you drag your exhausted body home, the marble monuments glow golden while your insula sinks deeper into shadow. A passing slave drops a bundle of discarded papyrus scraps, some bureaucrat's failed calculations now littering your path. You stoop to examine one, though you can't read more than a few letters. The wax tablet in your pocket bears your own accounting. 7 days of labor, 16 sesterces earned, 12 owed to the landlord, 3 for grain, 1 for the bath tax. Nothing left. From a nearby tavern spills drunken singing, the kind that starts jovial and always ends in broken noses. You quicken your pace past the brothel where the girls already line up in their cheap perfume. Some younger than your would-be daughter, had your wife survived childbirth. The madam eyes your patched tunic and doesn't bother calling out her prices. Even pleasure has its class divisions in Rome. Your building's courtyard fountain has stopped working again, its basin green with algae. Upstairs, your neighbor's door hangs ajar. The family gone, probably evicted. You try not to wonder where they'll sleep tonight. Your own door's lock broke months ago, but who would steal from you? The rats have better prospects elsewhere. Inside, the evening ritual begins. Shaking out the bedding. 3 lice today, a good haul. Positioning the cracked amphora to catch tomorrow's rainwater. Arranging your meager possessions just so. That wooden doll you carved for your stillborn daughter still sits in the niche, its paint long since worn away. You light yesterday's oil lamp wick, no sense wasting a fresh one, and the smoke stings your eyes as the flame gutters. Outside your window, torches flicker to life along the patricians' villa walls. Their laughter carries on the breeze, along with the scent of roasting meat that makes your stomach clench. Somewhere beyond those walls, the empire stretches vast and wealthy. Somewhere, aqueducts bring clean water to marble baths. Somewhere, libraries hold scrolls of poetry and philosophy. But here, in this room that smells of mold and old sweat, Rome is reduced to its simplest truth. You will work tomorrow, and the next day, and the day after that. You will hand coins to men who have never missed a meal. You will stare at monuments celebrating victories you paid for with your hunger. And when your back finally gives out or your lungs fill with stone dust, someone poorer will take your place. The lamp dies. In the dark, you lie on your side to avoid the worst of the mattress lumps. Tomorrow will be the same, and the day after, and the day after that, because that's Rome, glorious for some, eternal for others, and for you, just another endless day of surviving what the empire demands. Sunday arrives, not that it means anything to you. The gods may rest, but Rome's underclass never does. Today's luxury? An extra hour of sleep before the water seller's shouts pierce through your thin walls. His price is doubled after the aqueduct repairs, not that the water got any cleaner. You drink it anyway, wincing at the metallic aftertaste of lead pipes that will probably kill you in a decade. If the work doesn't get you first. The public baths are free today by imperial decree, a magnanimous gesture that means you'll be sharing the pool with every unwashed pleb in the district. The changing room smells like a goat died in it, and the floor sticks to your feet with a suspicious viscosity. In the tepidarium, a fishmonger's apprentice demonstrates his missing fingertip to an appreciative audience, while two slaves gossip about their master's bedroom habits loud enough to drown out the splashing. You're scraping dirt off with your wooden strigil when the cry goes up. The emperor's bread dole. A stampede ensues. Old men are trampled, children knocked aside in the rush for free grain that's mostly weevils and husks. You emerge with a bruised rib and half a portion, the other half now ground into the bathhouse tiles by 100 hungry feet. Back in your apartment, you attempt to patch your only decent tunic with thread unraveled from a discarded fishing net. The result looks like a spider tried knitting, but it'll have to do. Outside your window, a line of slaves carries construction materials to some patrician's new domus. One stumbles under his load, earning a lash across the shoulders. You look away, but not before seeing your own face reflected in his exhausted eyes. Night falls with its usual symphony of drunken brawls and amorous neighbors. You lie awake counting the cracks in your ceiling, 37 today, one new one since yesterday. Somewhere in the distance, a fire burns. Somewhere closer, a baby cries. Somewhere in the empire, they're erecting another triumphal arch to celebrate victories bought with your hunger. You close your eyes. Tomorrow the cycle begins again, and again, and again, because that's Rome, an eternal city built on endless, invisible suffering. The morning market bell jolts you awake. Another day, another denarius. You rub the sleep from your eyes, your fingers coming away gritty with the ever-present dust of Rome. The bread from yesterday has hardened into something resembling a roofing tile, but you gnaw at it anyway, your teeth protesting the effort. Outside, the streets already teem with life. Slaves rushing to their masters' errands, shopkeepers arranging their wares, and the ever-present beggars holding out cupped hands with the desperation of men who know today might be their last. Your work today takes you to the riverfront, where the stench of fish guts and sewage hangs thick enough to taste. The foreman, a hulking brute missing 2 fingers from some long-ago accident, barks orders before the sun properly clears the rooftops. You and a dozen other laborers will spend the day unloading marble blocks from Ostia, each slab heavier than the last. No cranes, no pulleys, just raw muscle and the constant threat of crushed toes. By midday, your hands are raw and bleeding, your tunic soaked through with sweat and Tiber water. The foreman tosses you a single copper coin for your efforts, barely enough to buy a cup of that vinegar they call wine at the dockside tavern. You watch as patricians stroll by in their spotless white togas, holding perfumed cloths to their noses as they pass your worksite. One young dandy in a purple border makes eye contact and wrinkles his nose as if you're the source of the stench, not the river his ancestors poisoned. The afternoon brings a new horror, hauling amphorae of spoiled garum from a sunken shipment. The fermented fish sauce has taken on a new life of its own, bubbling ominously as you wrestle the clay jars onto the dock. One cracks open, showering you in putrid brown sludge that will linger in your nostrils for weeks. The other workers give you a wide berth as you trudge home, the setting sun at your back casting your elongated shadow across the filthy streets. Your insula looms ahead, its crumbling facade leaning precariously over the alley like a drunkard about to collapse. The stairwell reeks of urine and something deader, but it's home. As you reach your door, you hear sobbing from the next apartment. Old Marcia's son didn't wake up this morning. Too much work, too little food. Another anonymous casualty of Rome's greatness. You pause, hand on your meager coin purse, then knock softly and slide half your day's earnings under her door. The oil lamp reveals your empty cupboard, your patched sandals, your chipped water cup. Outside, the sounds of the eternal city continue unabated. Laughter from a nearby tavern, the clatter of dice, a drunk singing off-key about some long-ago battle. You lie down on your pallet, staring at the ceiling where a new crack has appeared since morning. Somewhere in the distance, a nightingale sings. Somewhere closer, a baby cries. And beneath it all, the endless murmur of Rome, the city that never sleeps, never stops, and never notices when one more poor laborer fades into oblivion. The festival day dawns bright and cruel, a holiday for Rome, but not for you. While citizens don their best tunics, you count the holes in yours. The streets swell with revelers drunk on cheap wine and cheaper patriotism. A passing procession nearly crushes you against a wall as armored legionnaires march past, their polished armor reflecting sunlight like weapons. Behind them, chained captives stumble, some barely older than children, destined for the arena or the slave markets. One catches your eye with a look that transcends language. We could have been you. The free bread distributed at the Circus Maximus turns out to be a cruel joke. Rock-hard loaves stamped with the emperor's face that requires soaking in water just to be edible. You join the scrum anyway, emerging with a bruised elbow and half a loaf. Nearby, a merchant sells sausages on sticks to those who can afford them. The smell of sizzling pork makes your stomach clench, but your coin purse holds nothing but dust and regrets. At the public latrines, the holiday crowd has overwhelmed the already questionable facilities. You wait 20 minutes for a space on the bench, only to find the sponge stick broken and the runoff channel overflowing. A well-dressed merchant complains loudly about the stench as he exits, his perfumed cloak trailing lavender and privilege. You wonder if he's ever emptied his own chamber pot. The afternoon brings the games, their roar echoing across the city like distant thunder. You don't have a ticket, but the screams carry clearly enough. First the beasts, then the criminals, finally the gladiators. The crowd's cheers rise and fall in waves, a monstrous heartbeat pumping bloodlust through Rome's veins. A group of young patricians stumbles past your doorway, laughing about some poor wretch's death throes. One vomits in the gutter without breaking stride. Night falls on a city drunk on violence and wine. Fires burn in every district, some for celebration, others because some drunk knocked over a lamp. The air smells of smoke, roasted meat, and something darker underneath. You lie awake listening to the revelry, your hunger a constant companion. Tomorrow it's back to work, back to hauling, lifting, scraping, back to being invisible. But tonight, Rome celebrates. The emperor has conquered another people. The temples overflow with offerings. The rich grow richer. And you? You count your breaths in the dark, wondering if the next festival day will find you among the living, the dead, or, worst of all, exactly where you are now. The winter rains come, turning Rome's streets into rivers of mud and misery. Your leaky roof develops 3 new drips that form a perfect triangle over your bedding. The landlord promised repairs last summer. Just another in a long list of lies as reliable as the tides. You place your chipped bowl under the worst leak, listening to the rhythmic plink of water that will be tomorrow's drinking supply. Outside, the cold seeps through your thin tunic as you queue at the public fountain, hopping from foot to numb foot behind a dozen other shivering souls. Work becomes its own special hell. The foreman has you clearing clogged drains along the Sabura's back alleys, where winter transforms waste into a frozen nightmare. Your wooden shovel splinters against the ice, sending jagged spikes into your already cracked palms. The stench clings to your skin like a second shadow, earning you wide berths in the bathhouse later. Even the usual bathhouse philosophers, those self-proclaimed Socrates who hold court naked in the steam room, move their debates farther down the bench when you approach. At the market, prices have soared with the cold. The grain merchant eyes your coin with undisguised contempt before doling out a portion half the size it was last week. Barbarian raids on the shipments, he claims, though his belly suggests he's not missing any meals. You bite back a retort. Starving is better than a beating for insolence. Nearby, a slave girl barely in her teens trembles on the auction block, her price tag higher than you'll earn in 5 years. Her eyes meet yours for one fleeting moment before you look away, ashamed of your own helplessness. The walk home is an obstacle course of icy puddles and slick cobblestones. A passing litter splashes freezing muck across your legs, its occupant too engrossed in a scroll to notice. You pause at the bakery, where the smell of fresh bread makes your empty stomach howl, but the baker waves you off before you can even ask about yesterday's leftovers. Behind him, you see a stack of perfectly good loaves being fed to the pigs, too coarse for patrician tables, too good for plebeian mouths. Night falls early, bringing with it a damp cold that settles in your bones. You light your meager oil lamp, its faint glow revealing the mold creeping up your walls like some insidious invader. The baby next door wails incessantly, probably sick, probably dying, almost certainly forgotten by anyone who could help. You press your hands against the thin wall separating you, as if warmth alone could pass through the crumbling plaster. Somewhere beyond your dripping ceiling, the stars shine cold and clear over Rome's marble monuments. Somewhere, senators recline on cushioned couches, debating philosophy while slaves massage their feet. Somewhere, the emperor plans another conquest. And here, in this tiny room that smells of damp wool and despair, you huddle under your threadbare blanket, counting the days until spring, if you make it that far. Spring arrives not with renewal, but with a new flavor of suffering. The thaw transforms streets into rivers of liquefied waste that lap at your sandals with each step. You develop a cough that rattles your ribs, the same one half your neighbors have, the kind that starts as an annoyance and ends with you spitting blood into the gutter. The physician charges 2 sesterces just to tell you what you already know. Avoid dampness. You laugh so hard it triggers another coughing fit. Work at the construction site resumes with brutal intensity. The foreman, freshly returned from his country villa, cracks his whip with renewed vigor. The emperor wants this amphitheater finished by summer, he bellows, as if your aching shoulders could move mountains faster. A new batch of slaves from some northern war joins the crew, hulking men with haunted eyes who work like the dead already walking. One collapses at noon, his back striped raw from the lash. They drag him away before the body cools. You'll miss his steady rhythm passing bricks. The markets swell with spring produce you can't afford. Fresh figs taunt you from their baskets, their sweetness a rumor on the breeze. You settle for a handful of wormy apples the vendor discards, eating them core and all behind a stoa. A patrician's child tosses breadcrumbs to pigeons nearby, each morsel larger than your meager breakfast. His tutor drones on about Roman virtue while the boy yawns through his lessons. You consider grabbing the bread and running, but the hulking bodyguard at their side makes you reconsider. At the public baths, now overcrowded with winter's filth being scrubbed away, you witness a scene that sticks like the damp. A young noble, maybe 17, holds his nose while his slave scrubs him raw. Hurry up, the boy whines. I want to meet Marcus at the races. The slave's hands shake with exhaustion, his own tunic hanging in rags. You lock eyes briefly, and in that moment understand more than any philosopher's lecture could convey. Night brings no relief. Your cough worsens, keeping you awake alongside the rats celebrating spring in your walls. The couple upstairs fights again, this time with breaking pottery to accent their shouts. Outside, a drunk sings an off-key ode to some long-dead hero. You press your forehead against the cool wall, imagining the layers of Rome beneath you, the rich soil, the broken pottery, the bones of those who came before, all the way down to the bedrock. How many poor souls have lain exactly where you are now, aching and alone? How many more will after you're gone? Dawn comes gray and indifferent. You rise because there's no alternative, because the rent won't pay itself, because Rome demands your suffering as tribute. As you shuffle toward another day, you pass a new poster announcing games to celebrate the emperor's birthday. The ink still glistens fresh. Somewhere, lions pace their cages. Somewhere, slaves sharpen tridents. Somewhere, a poet composes verses about glory. And you? You cough, you work, you survive. For now. And so the days grind on in endless procession. Each sunrise a repetition of the last. Each sunset a temporary reprieve from the empire's demands. You learn to measure time not by consular years or imperial triumphs, but by the gradual decay of your body, the new ache in your knees, the slow blurring of your vision, the teeth that loosen one by one like stones in a crumbling wall. Rome celebrates its eternity while you count your remaining days and winters. The city changes around you. New temples rise where taverns once stood. The faces in the marketplace shift as old vendors disappear and new ones take their place. Even your insula's residents come and go, some evicted, some dead, some simply vanished in the night. Only the essential facts remain unchanged. You are poor, you are tired, and Rome will always demand more than you can give. One evening, as you drag yourself home past the newly completed amphitheater, a strange realization strikes you. The slaves who built it, the merchants who supply it, the cleaners who scrub its vomit-stained seats, none will ever sit in its best sections. The grain that fills its spectators' bellies passes through your calloused hands, yet never fills your own. You've become part of the machine that powers Rome's glory, yet remain invisible to those who benefit from your labor. Does it anger you? Sometimes, in the dark, when the cough won't let you sleep. Mostly, you're too tired for anger. Resentment is a luxury for those with energy to spare. You save your strength for surviving tomorrow, and the day after, and the day after that. Years from now, when your bones join the millions beneath Rome's streets, no monument will bear your name. No poet will sing of your struggles. The empire will continue as it always has, finding new backs to bend, new hands to build, new lives to consume in its endless hunger. But tonight, as the oil lamp flickers its last, you take small comfort in this. You endure. While senators scheme and emperors plot and philosophers debate, you, the nameless, faceless nobody, continue the oldest Roman tradition of all. You survive, not for glory, not for history, but for the simple, stubborn fact of being alive one more day in the greatest city the world has ever known. And perhaps, in its own way, that is its own kind of victory.